grandma has this dress.
No, neither.
I feel like Harry Potter. Too librarian. Too Bono?
No.
No. No. Big no.
Yes.
I look a little bit like a bumblebee. How long you been in these parts?
If sadness had a color. I bought this? Your Honor, I object.
No. This is so much like my dad.
That is the ticket.
Support for KQED Live comes from Berkeley Rep.
Support for KQED comes from the Asian Art Museum. Visitors can step into an experience like no other at TeamLab Continuity and become part of a wondrous ecosystem of lush natural imagery that dynamically evolves around them. For more information and ticket reservations, visit asianart.org.
The disproportionate impact of
more than half of Black business owners.
And disproportionate.
Somehow we always find a way to rise.
To the blueprint builders, to the backbones of every block, for the curators of the culture, and for generations to follow. You might fall, but never fail. Keep rising, keep rising, keep rising. Apply for business, marketing, and tech makeovers on us.
So glad I'm flying out of Oakland today. Let's count the reasons why. For one, flying locally reduces my carbon footprint. Plus, my airport supports over 17,000 jobs in the East Bay. And it makes sense. The more I fly from OAK, the more flights airlines will add out of OAK. All good.
No matter where you live in the Bay Area, there are many great reasons to pick OAK and fly the East Bay way. What you do with that extra hour is up to you.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Ryan Davis. I'm the Executive Director of KQED Live, and I am delighted to welcome you to our final event this fall here in the Commons at our newly renovated headquarters in San Francisco. KQED Live is our new multi-platform live events program that takes KQED's mission to inform, inspire, and involve, and makes it tangible through vivid conversations and screenings and performances and storytelling nights like this one tonight. Here in person and streaming live online. And you can find out more about our events and get tickets at kqed.org/live. This Friday, we'll be announcing our winter season. And we want to thank the season sponsors who make KQED Live possible. Those are Asian Art Museum, Berkeley Rep, Comcast Business, and Oakland International Airport. We are so grateful for their commitment to supporting our mission for civic and cultural engagement. And we want to thank all of you for being here with us tonight and for engaging with KQED on radio at 88.5 FM or on television or streaming online, in your podcast feed or on kqed.org. However we bring value into your everyday life, I'd like to encourage you to consider becoming a KQED member. You can find out about how at kqed.org/donate. So gathering for meaningful shared experiences is the bedrock of community, and nothing brings community together quite like the act of singing. And in the last few years, the gift of song has become all the more precious as its communal function has felt endangered. Tonight, one of KQED's arts and culture reporters, whose coverage takes a special interest in the voice and its place in culture, brings 3 of her stories from the last 2 years to life for you on stage. And I would like, if you would join me in welcoming our host, Chloe Veltman.
Hi everyone, it's great to see you. And if you're tuning in at home online, it's lovely to see you too. So tonight's event is looking at 3 instances in human experience where the spoken word fails or just doesn't quite do it. And the best and sometimes only thing to do is sing. So we're going to be looking at 3 different instances where this comes to happen. The first is from a recent time in US history where the public came together and used singing at a time of national grief. Then we're going to head to the world of neuroscience where we'll find out about how singing can help people communicate when they can't speak. And then for our final segment, we're going to go on a karaoke journey through the pandemic with a special guest who's visiting us from Los Angeles. There's going to be a little bit of audience interactivity along the way, and none of it's obligatory, of course, but we hope you'll join in, and I hope you'll enjoy the ride. So I'd like as we get started, for us to go back to, if you can remember back to the fall of last year, was a really difficult time. Here we were dealing with, it seemed like a triple whammy of awfulness between the COVID pandemic dragging on and some of the worst wildfires we've ever experienced in the state in its history, and then an extremely contentious election season, presidential election season. And I remember one morning, I think it was last October, I was not feeling good about anything at all, and I opened my inbox in the morning, and there was a music video. It was just a few seconds, a few minutes long, just one song, but it completely changed everything for me. I mean, it really, I couldn't help myself but cry. And every time I hear this song, I cry. It really has a transformative effect. So I'd like to introduce the artists who performed the song in that video to the stage right now to perform it for us. Please join me in welcoming Hank and Sunny and David and John from the Kronos Quartet and Meklit, vocalist. They're going to sing a song called The President Sang Amazing Grace, and it's by folk singer, why am I blanking on her name right now? It's by Zoe Mulford, folk singer Zoe Mulford.
A young man came to a house of prayer. They did not ask what brought him there. He was not friend, he was not kin, but they opened the doors and they let him in. and for an hour the stranger stayed. He sat with them and he seemed to pray. But then the young man drew a gun and he killed 9 people, old and young. In Charleston, in the month of June, the mourners gathered in a room. The president came to speak some words, and the cameras rolled, and our nation heard. But no words could say what must be said for all the living and the dead. So on that day and in that place, the president sang Amazing Grace. The president sang Amazing Grace. We argued where to lay the blame, on one man's hate or our nation's shame. Some sickness of the mind or soul, and how those wounds might be made whole. But no words could say what must be said for all the living and the dead. So on that day and in that place, the president sang Amazing Grace. My president sang Amazing Grace.
Thank you, Meklit and the Kronos Quartet. The president sang Amazing Grace by Zoe Mulford. Yeah. Well, we're going to have a bit of a conversation about what we just heard and also about some things that inspired what we just heard. So, Meklit, let's start with you. First of all, what is the song the president sang Amazing Grace about?
Well, it's about the moment when then President Obama sang Amazing Grace at the funeral of the Reverend Clementa Pinckney, who was one of the people murdered at the hands of white supremacist Dylann Roof. And it's both about the actual moment of the murders, but the heart and soul of the song is about when a song took a place, when a song was the only right response to tragedy that was unspeakable.
Okay, thank you. I think it would be lovely if we could watch a little bit of the footage of the event that inspired that song, so we can see, for those, maybe some of you already seen this footage, but if we can roll a little bit of that, just to remember what that was. It's in 2015, I believe.
Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Yeah, powerful moment. You know, it's striking watching that footage where I'm really interested in the little thing that happens before he starts to sing, where he hesitates, and we don't know what he's going to do next. And actually, on the journey there to that eulogy on that day, I believe his wife and also his advisor, who was in the plane with him, really did not want him to sing. They tried to put him off doing that, but he did it anyway, which is remarkable. So, I mean, I'd love to ask our guests here, you know, what you think about the significance or the impact of Obama against the advice of his entourage, singing that song in South Carolina in 2015.
I think it's one of the most inspired moments in public life in my lifetime that I know of.
Yeah.
And several years later, when I encountered this song for the first time, it was at a civil rights dinner honoring the surviving founders of the civil rights movement. And Joan Baez sang this song. And I realized, well, at the time, Kronos was making an album inspired by Pete Seeger and his life. And I wanted a song that was written by a living songwriter, carrying on the tradition of activism and speaking out, speaking up. And all of a sudden, there was the song. And so, for me personally, hearing Joan Baez sing that song answered a musical problem, but it also was an incredible moment of inspiration, the way she sang that. And I was thinking, Kronos was planning a festival here in San Francisco, and I knew we had to do that song. We didn't have a choice, really. And I was thinking of all the people that I knew, all the voices I'd heard, and one kept coming back to mind. And Meklit and I have been talking for many years about doing something, and there it was. It just seemed, for me, it had Meklit's name written all over it. That's how we got into it.
Yeah. It's interesting as well to think about how Joan Baez got hold of it, because I know she's talked on NPR about this, how she was driving around and listening to, I think it was the radio station KPFA maybe in Berkeley, and she was driving around and she heard this song, and she had to pull over basically. It stopped her in her tracks. But the tentacles, there are other tentacles too, and there's a children's book that was written based on this song too, with illustrations from the music video. It's amazing the impact it's had. So I'd love to ask, this is open to anyone who feels like answering, what it meant for you all to bring out this video in the run-up to the presidential election last year. I mean, I think it was pretty deliberate, right? It wasn't an accident.
It was not an accident.
Anyone care to comment? John, Hank, Sonny, anything else on that? No? Just that it was not an accident. Okay, fair enough.
I just want to say that, of course, I grew up in the Midwest, and this was a very, I knew about the song, but it didn't have the meaning that it has now to me. And this moment that Obama sang it, it was, as David said, it was inspired. It was also magical. It was almost, you couldn't do anything else but do this. And we have, in the past, we played a quartet by Ben Johnston, and it's a theme and variations on Amazing Grace. And that's where I learned more about the song from that, working on that. And Ben Johnston was known for writing quarter tones, but it was an inspired way to compose, because he would do these runs that became almost joyous, because you had more notes in the runs than just 8, on an octave. It was just, you'd finally arrive on this incredible inspired chords. But it started out very plaintively, but then ended with just great, great emotion. And I just loved that piece. It was just so, and so that sort of got me into Amazing Grace.
Yeah, it's amazing to think about Amazing Grace, the root song at the heart of all of this, and what it really means. When you think back to the way this song was born, it was written by a former slave owner. Originally in 1772, it was published in 1779. A guy called John Newton, who became a clergyman. And, he wrote the lyrics, and actually nobody knows what music the lyrics were set to originally. There are a whole bunch of different tunes that developed over the years for it, and it found its way into many different hymn collections to many different tunes. But it really caught fire on this side of the pond, made its way across the Atlantic, and it was enthusiastically picked up by the Baptist and Methodist preachers over here. And eventually, at some point, the words were paired more closely with the tune that we all know today. And then at this point, it takes deep root in the Black church in particular, here in the US, where it's sung across the generations. So it's interesting to think about how this song, Amazing Grace, has popped up a lot at many presidential inaugurations and funerals and other important presidential events. It was performed no less than 3 times during Joe Biden's inauguration week. It was played at Ronald Reagan's funeral. Apparently Bill Clinton and George W. Bush and Jimmy Carter, they all loved this song. So it really has an appeal across the political spectrum. I'm curious to ask, why is this such a popular song among US presidents, do you think? Meklit?
Well, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to answer that question. But I am going to answer a question that you asked before, because I'm sitting here thinking that there's a little note on my shoulder that wants to come out, so I'm just going to let it out. And that is that, just to reflect one more time on the moment when Obama sang the song, and that is to say that we want leaders who can be vulnerable. We don't want the speech to be perfect. We want a little bit of rough edges, because that's what life is like, but not in the kind of rough that is a sledgehammer, but the kind of rough that's like hands that have worked, And so when there's that moment when Obama sings, what it is him saying, it's him letting his own humanity out.
Yeah.
And him also not being sure how it's going to turn out. And that's also something that we love as participants in collective experience, we want to see we like people taking leaps that follow their own internal compass and seeing it all work out, you know?
Yeah.
And what's interesting to me about the video that we watched is that if you just watched that moment, would you know it was a funeral or a eulogy? No, because what happens in that moment, people stand, and the immediate reaction was laughter.
Yeah.
Was now we can, like something broke, something that was wanted to be felt in a kind of like a way of taking a chance, of revealing something, of being vulnerable. Like, and so like the response was laughter. It was like, and then suddenly it's that, because when that song plays, and now I'm going to circle it back to your question, when that song plays, it's not for one person alone. Never is that song for one person alone. That song is for everyone together. And it might not have started that way, but like, but that's how it is now. And so he's also making an invitation to people to say, and this is all of us in this. And I remember watching that video, and I remember crying in that moment. And that's what that song does. It says, not me, but us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's profound. Thank you, Meklit, for sharing that. I think this is a good moment for our first little interactive thingy. Let's all sing the first couple of verses of Amazing Grace. Why not? Yes? And Meklit will lead us. Generously, she's agreed to do that, if you're willing.
I mean, I really wasn't setting myself up, I promise. I was just riffing. I promise I was just riffing, okay? But listen, here's the thing. This song doesn't work on a mic, so I'm gonna put the mic down. I'm sorry to the people who are live streaming at home. There's probably room mics that are gonna capture everybody, but not me, but us, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you're ready. Ready. Oh, everybody's ready. Okay, cool.
Oh, we're having standing too.
Okay, we can do it. I'm following.
And we can kneel as well.
Oh.
Excellent.
Thank you, Meklit. Thank you to the Kronos Quartet and Meklit for joining us today. Such an honor. And thank you for the wonderful flowers. What a treat. Certainly better than the banana peel that I was waving around during sound check. All right, so now we're going to head. There we go. Goodbye. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to head to the world of neuroscience. We're going to talk about some groundbreaking research that shows how singing can help people who struggle to communicate with speech. And for this section of our evening, I've invited two wonderful guests, both neuroscientists at UC Berkeley. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Dr. Nina Dronkers and PhD student Alexis Pracar. Hi, hello, hello. All right.
Thank you. Mask off?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
If you feel comfortable, whatever. Yeah. Oh, you have faces. It's nice to see you. Okay. All right, so some brief introductions. Dr. Nina Dronkers, clinical neuroscientist at UC Berkeley. She focuses on understanding the speech, language, and cognitive disorders that occur after injury to the brain, conditions like aphasia, principally. And then Alexis Pracar, she's a PhD student in cognitive neuroscience at UC Berkeley, studies how the brain produces language through song, particularly looking at people with speech and language disorders. So, Nina, let's start with you. First of all, what is aphasia and how prevalent is it?
So aphasia is a disorder of language that occurs after an injury to the brain. So most of the people that we see have had a stroke. So the blood supply to the brain has been cut off because of a blood clot that may have traveled to the brain. And when the brain doesn't receive the oxygen it needs, unfortunately it dies. And it takes with it the functions that used to be housed in that piece of brain. So when a person has a stroke and part of the brain tissue dies, they lose those language functions or whatever other functions were associated with that part of the brain.
What are some of the main approaches to helping patients who suffer from this disease?
Well, there's a lot of techniques. It really depends on where in the brain the injury occurred. So there are actually a lot of language areas in the brain. And if a certain one is affected, a certain language deficit will ensue. So injuries to the front of the brain might cause more speech production problems that are in fact helped by song, which we'll hear about in a moment. And those that are more in the back of the brain tend to result in kind of comprehension problems. And I wonder if I could answer your prevalence question in terms of a question to the audience.
Yeah.
So how many of you have heard of Parkinson's disease, know about Parkinson's disease? Show of hands. All right. How many of you have heard of aphasia prior to coming to this event? Well, not as many hands, I think, but more than I usually see in an audience. And in fact, the prevalence of Parkinson's disease and aphasia is the same. It's about 1 to 2 million people in the United States who currently suffer from aphasia or from Parkinson's disease. So the numbers are the same, and yet the awareness is not.
Why is the awareness so low for aphasia?
It's a really good question. It probably has to do with the fact that people with aphasia have trouble communicating. So they don't speak well. They tend to, unfortunately, lose their friends and contacts and activities that they normally would have had. And so it kind of becomes, in a weird way, a kind of a silent disorder, sadly, for those with aphasia.
Interesting that singing might be something that can help, you know, this particular mode of expression that's so very much out in the world and forward and about community and connectivity more than anything else.
Exactly.
So we have a short video that I'd like to cue up, which you shared, Nina. It's specifically about this one patient that you've worked with. Should we watch the video first, or do you want to talk a little bit about it before we watch it?
Well, let me just give you a little intro. This is a gentleman who is about 5 years post-stroke in this particular video. And he has a very severe form of aphasia, so severe that he really cannot initiate any novel speech himself. All that comes out is the same sound over and over again.
All right, let's have a look.
Ready for a smaller place?
No.
Seems reasonable. Plus to keep up. Yeah. Now, all your children are grown, right? How many children do you have? 3. Can you count that out for me?
To 3, he's drawing their ages. That's the youngest one, hardest to remember.
What number is this? Right? Right. Now let's count it out.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Nice, nice.
So this is automatic speech now.
Let's go for broke. Let's go up to 20 if we can.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Now it's not automatic anymore, so you can't do it.
Okay, 1.
Wow. So break this down a little bit for us, Nina. What can we learn from watching this video about this patient that might help us understand a little bit about how singing, where we're sort of heading towards the realm of singing here?
Right, so if I ask this gentleman to sing Happy Birthday with me, he will sing along perfectly well. Happy birthday to you, a little bit distorted, but he's definitely got the melody and he has the words. Now, if I stop singing with him or modeling for him, it will become tono, 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 tono. So part of it has to do with how automatic it is, and another part definitely has to do with the melody and the song and the having learned it so well, in earlier years, that really makes this work.
So it's lodged in a different part of the brain, basically.
That's what we think, yeah. And so some treatments have actually tried to use that in helping people with an aphasia as severe as this gentleman has. So that would be something where a melody is the carrier for a phrase like, how are you, that the speech language pathologist might want to try to teach the individual. And by setting it in a phrase, how are you, and learning how are you over and over, then gradually withdrawing the melody, what you're left with is how are you.
Wow.
So it's tedious, it's not easy, but it does offer an opportunity for a person to be able to express themselves in language, as we'll hear Alexis talk about a bit more.
Yeah, I mean.
I have one question, if I may. I watched your face. What made him say 1, 2, 3? Well, I didn't understand exactly how did that transform.
Right, so counting.
Can we just repeat the question so everyone can hear?
Absolutely. So why did the counting come so easily to him when the more propositional speech did not? It's amazing how well-preserved automatic speech is in aphasia. So counting, naming the days of the week, swear words, things that are really overlearned, not even necessarily things you learned as a child, but definitely those things that are overlearned will just pop out effortlessly. And so, but as you noticed, when he got past 10, it wasn't really that automatic anymore. So then he had trouble.
All right. Well, let's move on to Alexis. I know you're focused quite strongly on singing in your research in particular. So what led you to take up singing as part of your academic work?
Well, I've always loved singing. Since I was a kid, I was always in musicals, choir, all that. And I hadn't ever really considered singing as kind of a realm of academic study until I was lucky enough to work at the VA working at a support group for people with aphasia. So we had a huge range of capabilities and different types of aphasia, and we would meet each week and I would have them do activities. And one of the weeks I brought music trivia. And the goal was very simple. I would play a clip of a song and they would have to name the song, and they would get bonus points for the artist. So there was one gentleman in particular who was very quiet. He had what we would call a very severe Broca's aphasia. His output was very limited. Words were difficult. Sentences were a completely other challenge for him. So we started the game, and I played a clip of Help by the Beatles. And I'll never forget this moment. He brightened up, And he started singing, and he sang the first couple verses with perfect fluency, and I was just completely blown away by this. And he continued on, sitting on the dock with Bay, Otis Redding, he nailed it. You know, I Can't Get No Satisfaction, Rolling Stones, even better. And I went to Nina and I said, Nina, oh my God, what is going on here? I wasn't in graduate school at this time. And she said, well, this has actually been observed for quite a while, that people with these severe deficits are able to sing. And I thought, wow, this is going to be the question that I pursue in graduate school. So,
fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, could you outline for us very, very briefly some landmarks so far that have happened in the research of using this idea of singing to help patients who suffer from aphasia?
Yeah, so I'll keep it brief. As I said, this has been observed for centuries, that people can sing words they can't say. And originally it was observed in these patients who had language deficits that resulted from brain injury to the left hemisphere. The idea was that in these patients, the uninjured right hemisphere must be kind of what's taking over and what's allowing this fluency. And since then, we've had the advent now of modern neuroimaging techniques that let us look at this old question with new methods that allow us to see what brain areas are active during tasks, such as singing. And these studies have confirmed indeed that it seems to be that there is increased activity in the right hemisphere when people are singing as compared to speaking. And interestingly, the structures in the right hemisphere that become active when we sing are kind of the mirror image anatomically of their counterparts in the left hemisphere that are active during speech. But in the same kind of stroke, there's also studies that show sites of shared activation, so areas that become active both during song and speech. So it's our job kind of as neuroscientists to continue disentangling these mechanisms.
Okay, thank you for that. So you mentioned your work with VA patients, and I know we have a couple of short video clips that I'd love for us to show our audience to kind of demonstrate the sort of work that you're doing. Perhaps you could introduce them for us, and then we'll watch them.
I'd love to. So the person you're going to see in the video, he actually has quite good language, meaning that he has a very mild case of aphasia. And his speech deficits, so the actual coordination of the articulators when we execute speech, he struggles with those due to his stroke. And you'll see in the video, there's two parts, okay? So I want you to watch for two things. The first part is this classic demonstration of singing Happy Birthday and then struggling to say the same lyrics. It's been demonstrated, it's still phenomenal to see. The second half is kind of a twist on the classic question. It actually shows him singing spontaneously, kind of a spontaneous phrase to a spontaneous melody, which is not something that has much empirical evidence supporting it. So let's take a look.
Try this, okay? Do you have grandchildren?
No, I have with
Not nearby.
Not nearby.
Yeah.
Not nearby.
Yeah.
So you must have been. Let's try Happy Birthday. Okay, ready? With me, ready?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Stephen.
He's one of your research subjects. He can sing, right?
Yeah.
This is an old. He basically can sing, and he has now say the words.
No, that chance. Happy birthday to.
There's your signature patient.
The aphasia was so much better.
Sing in the meat counter. And the seafood.
You should sing at the meat counter. Yeah.
Why don't you try that?
Yeah.
I like some sausage. How about a pork loin? Can I hear you sing?
I like some swordfish.
Wow. There you go.
Amazing.
Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah, so I know you're early in your research, Alexis, but why does singing seem to help these types of patients?
It's a great question. So clearly when you see cases like this, the mechanism for song and speech, that has to diverge at some point. And the question is, where and why is singing so special? So some reasons that singing might be special, there are a few theories. So one is that the melody itself may be activating another set of structures in the brain that are not active when we speak. Another idea is that when you sing, the rate of output is greatly decreased. So the time it takes you to say a word is much slower, and even these small changes, which might not be perceptible to us when we speak, it's actually quite a lot in brain time. So your brain might have more time to word find, to sequence these motor movements that are needed to execute speech. There's also some idea that it's actually the rhythmic components of song, because of course we all know song, you can't have song without rhythm. And so there's some studies that have been kind of suggesting that it's the rhythmic component. So my goal is to basically apply what we consider to be, the most modern neuroimaging techniques, taking into account all the work that's been done to come up with an answer.
All right, wow, it sounds like an amazing project. We're all about interactivity this evening, so I know you have a little exercise for us that will maybe help us to understand a little bit about this whole idea of singing versus speaking and the struggles that are therein that some of us take for granted.
Sure. Okay, so I know it's most striking in people who've had brain injuries, so it might not be as obvious in an audience of this size, and I don't know what your histories are, but okay, I want you to imagine this. I'm going to ask you to think of the words to a song, and I'll tell you the title in a minute. I can't tell you now, but I'm going to ask you to think of it, and I want you to try to say the lyrics to the song immediately, okay? Are we all ready? Okay, I want us all to immediately start trying to say the lyrics to the national anthem. Okay. We get a little grumbling. Not bad though. I will say this is hurting the example a bit because you guys are clearly very smart. But in any case, let's try to sing it together. Oh, say, can you see? Okay. By the dawn's early light.
Yeah, it's easier.
Great. It's easier and kind of maybe the first verse, it's like, okay, anyone can do that. But imagine the song keeps going. You're getting into all those lyrics that, do we even know what the words are? I don't know. When I was a child, I thought that dawn's early was a word.
Dawn's early? I love it.
But anyway, the point...
Like elemental P in the alphabet song.
The point is that the song kind of is a vehicle that you can almost like ride along and the words just come to you. And we all have experienced you're singing along to your favorite song and you don't, or not even your favorite song, and you're like, how do I know all these words? So yeah, I just think.
And so similar mechanisms are potentially at play when we're talking about people who have aphasia and other.
Yeah, the idea is that there's perhaps this broad storage of language across both hemispheres that singing can uniquely tap into.
All right. So final question for you both. What are your hopes for the research and the future of this sort of singing-oriented field when it comes to talking about how we're going to help folks who suffer from these disorders?
Well, it certainly is one tool. And, to be honest, it doesn't work for everybody. But for some, it actually works very well. So it's certainly one of the tools in our toolbox that we can use to try to help people with aphasia. And we're hoping that maybe if we can couple a technique like singing with other techniques or other new advances in neuroscience research, that we might be able to make even greater advances. I mean, we still have stem cell research out there, and we still have, a lot of other new novel methods that we can learn a lot more about and see if we can maybe group these together to really enhance the person's outcome.
All right. Any final words, Alexis?
Yeah, I just think that, like Nina said, it doesn't work for everyone. But there is this clear dissociation between spoken language and sung language. So I think what really needs to be done is we need to finally elucidate on a very, strict and on a really small scale, fine-grained scale, that is, what is the mechanism and how does it work? And then I think we might even see translations into disorders like stuttering. People don't stutter when they sing, and that's also a phenomenal observation that could potentially benefit from work like this. So yeah, some basic science, which I think will then have direct applications to clinical practice.
All right, well, thank you very, very much to my esteemed guests, Dr. Nina Dronkers and Alexis Pracar.
Oh, flowers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me. That was so great.
Oh, no worries.
Thank you.
Goodbye. See you. Okay. All right. So sometime during the haze of the COVID lockdown, I came across an article in New York Magazine by my next guest. It was all about the karaoke journey that she had made through the pandemic up to that point. I thought it was such a wonderful article. It made me laugh, and it was also super bittersweet. And at the time, I was working on a documentary for the California Report magazine all about what had happened to singing during the pandemic, how it had gone from being this incredibly beneficial, community-oriented, joyful thing to basically being the most dangerous thing you could possibly do, the biggest super spreader, the thing that could more likely to kill you than who knows what. And, you know, and then thinking about all the singers in our state and the different communities of singing and how they were grappling with that reality. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome to the stage my final guest of the evening, Alyse Whitney, who's going to talk about karaoke. Hey, Alyse.
Hi.
Good to see you.
So good to see you.
Have a seat. All right.
Can we scoot a little closer?
Yeah, let's get a little closer. All right, so by day, you are a food writer, editor, recipe developer based in Los Angeles. And by night, you are a veritable karaoke queen. But why karaoke?
Why not karaoke? That's the question. I wasn't born to be a professional singer, so this is the next best thing, something that you can do and bring a group of people together that may not know each other. No one gets to know each other faster than at karaoke.
So true, so true. I know this from the Beatles karaoke I attended last Tuesday.
Oh.
Yeah.
Love a theme.
Yeah, I felt like I was a room full of strangers and they were all friends by the evening.
Yes.
By the time the evening was over. So what makes a good karaoke song for you and what's to be avoided?
That's a great question. I think that what makes a great karaoke song is its sing-along ability, which I think is definitely in Merriam-Webster now. It means that you want the crowd to participate, unless that person feels like it should be their solo, in which case you should sit back and just watch. But if most people have heard it on the radio when they were kids, nostalgic songs do really well, or just music that makes you want to sing, and that's what you should be doing at karaoke. What makes a bad karaoke song is too long of a karaoke song, or Celine Dion, wonderful karaoke catalog, but if you can't hit the notes, it's just going to be excruciating for everyone else. Okay. So I think there are a few types of karaoke people, and I have ranked them. I did this recently. I was at a party, and I was told, you have to meet this guy, Will. He's a karaoke king, like you're a karaoke queen. I said, okay. I was only described what he looked like. He had long hair, like Jesus, and a beard. And I found him at the bar. And I said, I heard you're a karaoke king. And we talked about karaoke songs, and we were chatting about the types of people that go to karaoke. The best karaoke is someone with a great voice who picks the right song that everyone wants to sing along with and is excited, gets the room really hype. The second best is the person who puts the best energy into the karaoke song, but may not have a great voice. And then the worst is the person who really can't sing. They're very tone deaf, and they have no energy. They just go up with the mic, and maybe they were taunted to do it, or they're scared. You want people to get excited.
Okay, okay. Wow. I never thought about it that way.
I have a lot.
I can tell. So take us back to the roots of this obsession.
Well, the first time I remember doing karaoke, I'm adopted from Korea by white parents in upstate New York, and there was a Korean mentor program where you could be paired with college students who are Korean with little kids who are adopted, so they could learn about their culture. And part of the Korean culture is karaoke. And I like to think I was born with it, because the first time I stepped into a karaoke room was at a Korean buffet in Flushing, Queens.
How old were you roughly?
I think I was like 11. I was pretty young. I was in middle school. I was with one of my best friends at the time, and in the big dining room they rented out for, I think, like the 25 of us who went down to New York City on a Greyhound bus or a charter bus. There was a big banquet hall, and we could sit and eat, and then there was a karaoke television, unlike this, you know, a box television, probably 15 inches at most, really, really small, and a couple of microphones. And they said, you can pick a song from this big binder, laminated pages of songs that were popular at the time. And this was in the early 90s, mid 90s, I guess. No, that was in, I'm going to age myself, it was in 2001. Okay. So in 2001, we picked NSYNC. And
NSYNC, okay.
Yes, it actually was, I think it was Tearing Up My Heart from their first album, I believe 1998. Okay. And we tore up that karaoke room. It was me and my, 11 or 12-year-old friend just singing NSYNC at the top of our lungs. And I got a taste for it.
And it's never let you go.
No.
How supportive were your parents of this new obsession of yours when
they bought me a karaoke machine with a tape deck.
Oh, that's sweet.
And when a song would come on the radio, I would record it. And then you could it wasn't very technologically advanced, but there were dials that you could turn down the vocals so you could sing along to the background. So I would tape songs from the radio.
All right. You lived in New York for years and you moved to Los Angeles during the pandemic.
Yes.
And in many ways, it seems like when you were living in New York, that was when you kind of hit your stride as a karaoke fan. Mm-hmm. I'd love for you to describe for our audience a typical night out in New York pre-COVID. Okay,
Pre-COVID. This was long before the pandemic. I moved to New York City in 2011, and a roommate at the time, a Craigslist roommate, invited me to her birthday party, and it was at Gogopa, which became my go-to karaoke spot for the decade I lived in New York. I was there at the beginning, once a year for my birthday, then twice a year for my birthday and someone else's birthday, or just because. And then by the 10th year, I was going at least every month, sometimes with just one or two friends to do a happy hour karaoke, because it was BYOB. So if that sets the stage for anyone, when you go to BYOB karaoke, you bring your best alcohol, clearly, from the Trader Joe's wine shop or something more refined. And they provide ice and lots of water for you. The longer you stay, the more free water bottles you get. And at first, it was just alcohol, and maybe they'd bring out some snacks like Cheetos or whatever. But it's also bringing your own food. So from being a food writer and having a lot of friends who are in the food world, we would just one-up every karaoke. One time when I was leaving a job and I got a new job I was really excited about, my chef friend of mine made homemade crab rangoon and chicken fingers and homemade ranch and honey mustard, and we had a tower of takeout boxes. And
what a night!
Yeah, and last time I had cheese plates catered, because why not? I mean, you would start the night making sure that you prepped by eating some food. Nothing that smelled too bad, though, because it's karaoke room, tight quarters. Hydrate, drink alcohol, sing, pick more obscure songs and weird tunes as the night goes on, come back to the hits, leave at 2 in the morning, and take an Uber home.
Amazing.
Not in the beginning, I guess. In the beginning of New York, it was, broke, just out of college student, taking the subway home at 2 in the morning with no voice left.
And Cheetos on your breath.
Yes.
So you had a pretty interesting journey through the pandemic with karaoke. Gogopa, such an important part of your life. And describe that last night that you had there before this, as this pandemic was coming down, and talk us through what happened thereafter.
It's a crazy night. It was March of 2020. And there was only whispers of COVID. It was happening in Italy, it was happening in China, but there wasn't really, there was that one case in Seattle, but it was right at the beginning of March. And my friend and I, who actually here in the audience tonight, my friend Francis and I, spontaneously decided to see Celine Dion at the Berkeley Center in Brooklyn. We bought tickets at the box office the night of, which was exhilarating. We had amazing seats. She was incredible. And two of her friends had gone as well. And we met up after to get some drinks, and we were like, should we go karaoke? And we were like, okay. So there was no karaoke bars in Brooklyn where we were. So we actually got McDonald's, and then took a car across the bridge to Gogopa in Midtown. And we got a room for the 4 of us. My favorite employee, Lee, who was my friend for 10 years, but we never exchanged numbers, Instagrams, anything. We only existed in Gogopa together. And I saw him, and he lit up. he was so excited. I hadn't seen him since Christmas. I had a Christmas karaoke, and it was now March, and he hadn't seen me in months, catching up. Yeah. He had a bowl cut just to like set the sit. Like this guy could have been 19, could have been 42. He just had a bowl cut, forever young little Korean man. And he would knock on our door when our time was almost up, and he would say, last song, and all of us would be like, no, leave, we're going, we're another hour, and he'd add another hour to the clock. So we come in, and I ask if we can have a room for just the four of us. There was no one there. I think it was a Thursday night. And they do sell some soju there. We got some soju. We sang for a couple hours, even though we all had to work the next morning. I was not going on a flight the next morning, I think, actually. And then we just sang. And then we had no idea that the world was like ending. We went into lockdown like a week later.
Mm-hmm. And that was the last time you went to Gogopa?
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then what happened?
Then the world shut down. I was headed to upstate New York to see my family for a weekend, and that weekend turned into 5 months. So I was away from the city that everything had shut down, restaurants, bars, concert halls, Gogopa. I had no idea what happened to them. I emailed them a few times to see how they were doing, and no one answered. They probably only answered at the computer, at the venue. And I wrote this essay for Grub Street at New York Magazine because I realized that I was missing karaoke so much. When would we all karaoke again as a collective New York City, where things were dangerous? You wouldn't even be going out to get takeout without wiping it down with Clorox wipes. So It was a scary time, and a time where I wasn't thinking about singing. I was thinking about my health and my family and my friends and when the world would be normal again. But that was the thing that I realized was my last big night out.
Okay. And then you moved to Los Angeles.
Yes.
So not only did you leave Gogopa behind, but you left New York behind.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And what happened to you in Los Angeles and with the whole karaoke thing?
So I moved in September of 2020. I got a new job. I came out here, and then I knew some people out here, but as you know, like if no one had vaccines yet, we were all just kind of waiting to see when we could hang out and maybe have dinner one-on-one if we've all been really careful. So I was like prepared to be in a new city, just, making my house organized or something to pass the time. But on my first night sleeping in my new apartment, I was on an air mattress on the floor waiting for my movers to arrive. They were a week and a half late, so I was on the air mattress longer than I expected. And there was an earthquake that night, my first ever earthquake in California.
Welcome to California.
And I just thought it was a truck going by, because I'm from New York, so I was just like, it's a loud truck on my street. So I wake up in the morning and someone is knocking on my door, and I'm like, I don't know anyone, who's here? I go to the door, and en masse are my 3 of my neighbors. I live in a 4-plex in Los Angeles, which is the only 4 apartments. They're like, hey, hope you're okay after the earthquake. We brought you croissants and this little can of wine. It's like 10 in the morning. And we just wanted to welcome you. We hope you're okay. And I was like, wow. Also, I'm from New York. No one knew each other. No neighbors knew each other. So I'm just like, who are these people? I won't buy your Girl Scout cookies. Please move on. But no, they were so nice. And we chatted from a distance. And they said they had been a pod for the pandemic so far. Because at that point, what have it been, 6 months or something like that. And they said, hey, we know you're new here. If you want to hang out with us, here's our numbers. Let's get to know each other. And we did. Mm-hmm. And I found out that one of my neighbors, Melissa, loved karaoke. And I said, oh, well, good for you, because so do I. But, we can't go out. My birthday was a month after I moved. They threw me a birthday party at my place because since I was new there, I didn't have tons of stuff, so lots of room to roam around. And I had the biggest couch somehow. And for my birthday, my mom bought me a little karaoke machine. It just had 2 microphones. It was gold. It was totally gaudy, and it was perfect. And it sits on my mantle underneath my television. We had to break it in. Yeah. So we had a lot of wine and some birthday cake, and then we started singing. And I think I still had bins I hadn't unpacked yet, and we used them as stands and places to sit in my apartment. And we sang for hours and hours, and we decided that we would, in our drinking and our fun celebrating that we would have a kind of like a girl group called D5 because we were all very diverse. That was what the decision we made at the point. You know, 3 Asian women, an awesome black girl, and 1 white girl. And that was the name that a friend came up with. I said, okay, we'll just go with that, and we'll just shorten it and not tell people what it means.
All right, we have, I think, a lovely picture of you doing your thing with D5. There we are.
Yeah, oh yeah, I also got disco balls from my best friend. They plug into the wall, and sometimes they just are on, even if we're not doing karaoke, but yeah.
And that's Miso, your dog?
Yes, my dog Miso. She
always joins in?
Yeah, she likes to sing Who Let the Dogs Out. There's not a lot, little bow wow. I don't know how many more artists she can get through, but...
All right, so we have D5, we have the lockdown karaoke. Did it ever occur to you at any point to do, you know, one of those sort of over-the-internet karaoke things?
You know what? No, I think it's about the energy in a room, no matter if it's 5 people or it's 30 people. It's like the energy that karaoke gives back to you as you sing. It's not the same online. I had some musician friends who have done concerts virtually, which I find really great, but they say the hardest part is not hearing the clapping and not hearing the singing along. So I've never done karaoke over Zoom. I thought about it, I did, for my 30th birthday, which was when this happened, soon after. And I thought about 30 little faces singing karaoke, and then I thought about how Zoom has a delay and the feedback, and it would be awful. And so we didn't do that. We instead just did a cheers, and then I was like, you guys can all go. This is horrible. Like, we're all on a screen together. But it was nice to catch up.
Right. So the pandemic restrictions sort of lifted for a while there, and you were able to get out in Los Angeles and hit actual karaoke bars.
Yeah.
Tell us about that experience, getting to be in a bar again for the first time in a new town, your new adopted town.
Well, a friend of mine who lives here, she asked me if I wanted to go to, everyone had been vaccinated at this party, a small, like 10-person private room karaoke in Little Tokyo in LA. And she said, everyone has been really careful, everyone's been vaccinated, do you want to come? And I said, wow, this was May of 2021, I guess now. And I said, okay, let's do it. And we had the most fun. It was exhilarating to be back in the room, and I was with people I hadn't met before that I now am friends with. I was with one of my good friends, and we brought, I think, 80 chicken nuggets, which maybe we would regret later, but it was really fun. 80 chicken nuggets, a bunch of wine that we all had. Like, a lot of people are editors, so they had like wine that they had tried for a story or something, like sitting around that was collecting dust. So we brought it all together, and we had a lot of fun.
Oh, and what happened to D5? Are you all still going?
Yeah, so we don't see each other often now because we all are back to our jobs and to life. And now that we've all been triple vaxxed, we are planning our next D5, reunion show. We did throughout the pandemic just have random karaoke nights. It was an every Saturday thing for a while, but then we all got tired. So we decided to do it every spontaneous couple months. And we did the holidays together last year, Thanksgiving, Christmas. None of us could go home to see our families, so we did karaoke, and I made like the Samin Nosrat's buttermilk turkey, and we had a great time.
Delicious. It sounds like karaoke has to go with food, right?
Yes, and it's kind of an afterthought at a lot of karaoke bars that like serve food and alcohol because they just want to make the most money for the least amount of food. But when you bring your own, you can make that like dinner and a show.
Fabulous. So we have a little karaoke set up here at the theatre.
Yes.
And we're wondering if maybe you'd sing us a little something.
Okay. I guess, yes.
All right, so what'll it be, Alyse?
I'll sing my signature karaoke opening song, which you can do sober. I'm obviously sober. I'm here on the stage. I wish there was like a secret. Is there like a behind this curtain? There's a bottle of wine.
Oh yeah, I wish.
Brian? No. Okay. So a song you can do completely sober to open up the karaoke room, get everyone's vocal cords going, is "Mr. Brightside" by The Killers.
Mr. Brightside by The Killers.
I don't know the age of this audience. I hope you all know, and please sing along so it's not just me on a stage completely sober, not at a karaoke bar with a spotlight. Although this is a dream. Like if a karaoke bar had a spotlight and a mic stand, that's the dream. But so please sing along if I am to go on this karaoke journey with you.
Yeah, we're going to have the lyrics up on the screen. So yeah, let's do that. Take it away, please, Alyse Whitney.
Okay.
Alyse Whitney, thank you very, very much. That was marvelous.
But I think you do have a surprise for these fine folks in the audience.
Yeah. So this is where our official program ends for tonight. But we would love you to stick around. We have the karaoke set up here, and if you'd like to, anyone who wants to sing a song, we're welcome to sort of come up here, and we've got copies of a catalogue if you want to sign up here at the podium. Don't be frightened, and we're going to be closing off the video feed. So
yeah, the video feed is off.
Video feed's off. You're not being broadcast all over social media.
And this will be sanitized.
Yeah, so that's right too. So a huge thank you to our Director of Events, Ryan Davis, and all his team for producing this event, and all the people at KQED who've made this event possible. I'd also like to thank my wonderful editor at the California Report magazine, Victoria Malayon, who's in the audience, who basically, she made it possible for me to do some of the reporting that I brought with to you tonight. So KQED Live is going to be announcing its winter lineup of events this Friday. You can find out more and sign up for the newsletter at kqed.org/live. So a big thank you to all our guests and to you for coming. Happy holidays. And one last thing, I really hope that sometime during this holiday season, you'll get out and sing, whether it's karaoke or Christmas carols, or even at home in the shower on your own. It's all good. Happy holidays and thanks very much. Good night.